Good morning, everyone. Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on a pretty miserable Monday morning if you're an Arsenal fan. These Sunday 7:15pm kickoffs aren't doing Arsenal or Mikel Arteta any favours at the moment. Another defeat, another home defeat, a fourth in a row, the first time since the 1950s last night. And it just goes from bad to worse, really, for Arsenal at the moment. Apologies, I didn't get to do one of my videos after the game at the Emirates last night. One of my player ratings, there was just too much going on and had quite a bit to write given what happened. And so, yeah, I thought I'd pop on this morning, go through Burnley, pick the bones out of that latest defeat, the talking points from it, what Mikel had to say after the game, and then kind of look ahead to what's next and where Arsenal go from here, really, and what Mikel Arteta does from here, because it is pretty worrying, I have to say, what's happening at Arsenal right now, and what seems to be a complete failure to be able to find any sort of solution to the issues at the moment, and for it to just happen week after week, game after game, especially at home, it's really a really big worry. So I'll talk about all of that, and I will go through quickly my player ratings from Burnley, as I didn't get to do them last night. So let's get going. I mean, let's just start picking the bones out of what went wrong yesterday. I'm sure you all watched it. I'm sure you've all had your say. You've all spoken to your mates about it. You've all had your say on social media. I mean, just taking the result and what happened out of the way, I mean, it wasn't a pretty performance, but I wouldn't say it was a dreadful performance. I thought Arsenal was certainly the better team. They should have won the game. They had their chances. They didn't take them. Lacazette should have scored in the first half, probably should have scored a couple in the first half, definitely should have had one. I think if Arsenal get the first goal last night, they go on and win that game fairly comfortably, but they didn't. It's a tale of the season, really. They didn't create too much, and what they did create, they missed. The second half, they started very well. They were well on top. Again, they started having chances. Keeper was making saves. Looked like only a matter of time before they got the goal, and then we all know what happened after that. Xhaka got himself sent off in the most stupid, idiotic way possible. And then the game changed, and Arsenal lost all the momentum they had. Burnley went up and scored, or they didn't even score themselves. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang scored an own goal. It kind of sums up the season he's having at the moment. So it was just turned into a disaster, really, for Arsenal and for Mikel Arteta. And I mean, once they went 1-0 down yesterday, you could kind of see they weren't going to get back into it. Understandably, perhaps confidence is absolutely rock bottom at the moment, and to kind of think that you'd played all right and should have been winning, and then suddenly find yourself down to 10 men and a goal down, you could see the players, their heads dropped, and it was a real struggle after that. He's just focusing on Mikel Arteta at the moment, and look, I really like Mikel, and I want him to do well. I want him to turn this round, but he's leaving me very confused at the moment with the mistakes he seems to be making on a weekly basis, and his determination to stick with the same players who are underperforming is just really confusing, and I can't quite put my finger on why he's doing it. We saw it. I mean, Xhaka obviously got self-sent off last night. He was very lucky to be playing anyway. He's not in a good run of form. You've got Ainsley Maitland-Niles playing incredibly well in midweek on a weekly basis in the Europa League. He's not starting games. The same goes for Willian. I mean, admittedly, I know that Pepe's suspended at the moment and Reece Nelson's injured. Maybe Willian wouldn't have kept his place in the team had that not been the case with those two. And I would hope that Pepe comes straight back into the side on Wednesday night when Arsenal play Southampton, because it'll be almost the last straw if Willian keeps his place on Wednesday night as well, after his performances of late, or of this season, really. And it's just that, it's Mikel, he's just making the same mistakes, or seems to be. Look, I mean, he's the manager, he knows best, you would hope. But from my perspective, and I know from a fair few people's perspective as well, it's sort of going into that game last night, you think of the run they've been on, the results haven't been going away, and the only change he makes from Spurs is El Neni for Partey, which is basically an enforced change anyway because Partey's injured, and you're almost, with that as well, you're making yourself less creative. And then this is a team who haven't been creating any chances, who haven't been scoring any goals, and then you're making them less creative at home to Burnley, who have only scored 5 all season, have conceded, I don't know what it was, I think it's 18 or something like that. Surely this was a chance to play Smith Rowe in the number 10 role. if Smith Rowe played very, very well midweek, reward him for that. Play Smith Rowe, but instead he plays Lacazette again in the number 10 role. I've already spoken about Willian. I've spoken about Granit Xhaka. Surely you play Ainsley Maitland-Niles last night. You change something. You try and do something to arrest this slide that you're on. You don't just keep playing the same team that are underperforming on a weekly basis, playing the same players who are out of form. It just confuses me. Even Hector Bellerin, and I like Hector, and I'm not sure about Cedric, I have to say, but at least Cedric's been playing well, albeit in the Europa League, which has been a poor standard of opposition. But Bellerin's struggling. Shake things up a little bit. Try and do something to change the way things are going. Don't just do the same thing week in, week out. It doesn't make too much sense to me, I have to admit. And they are the big mistakes that Mikel's making that are making it, as much as I really like him, are making it incredibly difficult to continue backing him at this point. I mean, I asked Mikel about that last night. I asked him in the press conference after the game. I asked him on rotating players, and was he tempted to shake things up at least for that game because of the form that his side had been on, because of the form of the likes of Granit and Laka and Willian, and because of the form of the players in the Europa League. And he said, well, we have shaken things up in other games, and sometimes it'll work and other times it hasn't. I picked the team that gives us the best possibility to win the game. And again, it's answers like that will make it harder and harder to back Mikel, because you think, does that team give you the best possibility to win the game because you picked it basically for the last 2 months and you haven't won any games? So how does that give you the best possibility to win the games when in your other competition, again, albeit a worse standard of opposition in that competition, you are winning games and you are scoring goals and you are creating chances? So it's tough. And so I asked him in response to that, I was like, are you rewarding the Europa League players with their performances? Do you feel like you're rewarding them? And he said, I don't know. I will tell you the same thing. The players, in my opinion, give us the best chance to perform, and players on the bench who can do that, the ones I pick. Some of the ones you've mentioned, they've been with us a very short time because of injury or different situations. It's not players that have established themselves in the first team, but I understand when you lose, you have to try and pick somebody else. So he's getting a bit annoyed there with my question, I think a little bit, but his answer there seems to be saying, look, I'm picking the senior players, the established players. But again, at some point, you've got to change things up again. You've got to give some of these youngsters a chance, surely, especially when they are impressive in midweek. So it's responses like that, again, which are making it harder to continue to back Mikel to the point of thinking he is going to turn this round, because you're not seeing any signs of what he's doing, and you're certainly not seeing any signs of what the players are doing, that they are going to turn it around. And he's got a big week coming up, Mikel, because he hasn't got the sort of respite of the Europa League now, because that has been his saving grace in recent weeks. Is although they've been awful in the Premier League, at least there's been a midweek game in the Europa League when Arsenal played well. They've raised the spirits a little bit of the fan base and taken the heat off the Premier League a tiny little bit. But he hasn't even got that now. He's just got Premier League all the way, basically. He's got Southampton on Wednesday, then he's got Everton on Saturday, and then he's got City in the Cup, and then he's got Chelsea in the League. I mean, 4 massive games coming up. And you look at it on paper and you think, where are they going to get the results from? Southampton are a very good side this year. They've proven how good they are. They're well up in the table. They're very good away from home. Do you really back Arsenal to win against Southampton in midweek? I don't. And it's a sad thing to say, I know. Everton just had a great win at home to Chelsea. Do you fancy Arsenal going up to Goodison and getting a result next weekend? I'm not sure. We know what Arsenal do against Manchester City every time they play them, pretty much. So you wouldn't back them to win in the Cup on Tuesday night. And then you've got Chelsea, who have had a very good season on Boxing Day. And so where are the results coming from? How are you going to turn things around? And it's really worrying. The season that started, we were so optimistic at the start of the season. We'd won the FA Cup, won the Community Shield, done all right in the transfer market up to that point, and then you brought in Thomas Partey. You win at Old Trafford a few weeks ago. Again, optimism is really high, and it's just come crashing down. And now you're looking at the league table and you're thinking, 4 months ago Arsenal were winning the FA Cup, and now realistically they look like they're in a relegation dogfight. And I know people will kind of scoff at that idea, say Arsenal won't go down. They're established international players, they're not going to go down. And I do agree. I don't think Arsenal are going to go down, but you can't say for any certainty that they're not, just because they're not scoring goals, they're not creating chances, and they're conceding goals. So, I mean, that's a dreadful mix, isn't it? So, yeah, it is worrying. And I hate doing this on a Monday morning because it's so depressing. In all my videos recently, I feel like I've been depressing the hell out of you all. But it's difficult to see where the green shoots of recovery are going to come from. And the ones that you do think could help spring that recovery aren't getting any game time. And there's the positive thing, I suppose, ahead of Southampton is a couple of suspensions. So Hector is suspended, I believe, and Granit is obviously suspended. You want to see. I don't want to see Danny Ceballos play on Wednesday night in place of Granit Xhaka. I want to see Ainsley Maitland-Niles get a run in central midfield and play Cedric at right back. That's what he signed him for. That's why he gave him a 4-year contract. Don't play Ainsley at right back. Play a right back and give Ainsley a go in central midfield. It's what I desperately want to see. I think Ainsley deserves it. And to be fair, I think Cedric probably deserves it. So have his go there. So that's what hopefully might lead to some sort of change in performance on Wednesday night. Is at least there's going to be a couple of changes that have to be enforced rather than relying on Mikel to actually make them. I've got to talk about Granit Xhaka. I mean, it was just idiotic, especially coming so soon after Nicolas Pepe basically did the same thing against Leeds. You're letting your teammates down, you're letting your manager down, you're letting yourself down, you're letting the fans down. It was just ridiculous. I mean, we know what Granit Xhaka has been like basically since he signed for Arsenal. He can lose his head. But to lose it in that situation when Arsenal was so on top, when they'd started that second half well and were looking like they were going to score, to then go and throw it all away and get sucked into doing what he did yesterday was just absolutely pathetic, and he should be feeling so ashamed of himself this morning. I don't know if he'll apologise. He didn't apologise when he had his go at the fans, so who's to say whether he'll apologise now? I mean, Nicolas Pepe did. Fair play to him after Leeds. We'll have to wait and see if Granit Xhaka does the same. I asked Mikel after the match, I said, look, you labelled what Pepe did unacceptable. Is it the same thing for Granit Xhaka? And he said, absolutely. He went on from that, started saying, I think being unacceptable doing that action is because the players are in a moment where they are so willing to do more, to fight more, to show how committed they are, to be alive in games. That, on this occasion, Granit has overstepped the line. There is another action with Mo, talking about Elneny here, that I haven't seen but looks similar. We cannot make mistakes because that is the wrong approach of what we're trying to do. He's obviously talking about that incident when Elneny was very lucky to escape a red card soon after as well. It's just players losing their heads at the key times. And, Granit has been given a lot of opportunities from Mikel, and perhaps he probably shouldn't have been. He should have been out of the side by now, as far as I'm aware. And then to throw that all back in your manager's face by doing what he did last night was just absolutely ridiculous. And like I said, he should feel very, very ashamed of himself this morning. I hope he does. Whether he does, though, it remains to be seen. See if he comes out with an apology or not. So what is next for Arsenal? Where do you go from here? Well, I've already touched on it in this video. I think he simply has to make changes now. He can't continue to do this. Fortunately, as I said, a couple of changes are going to have to be enforced now for Southampton because of the suspensions that are coming up. Nicolas Pepe obviously comes back into the equation. He has to start on Wednesday night. He cannot play Willian on the right side on Wednesday. Pepe has to come straight back into the team for me. As I said, play Ainsley Maitland-Niles, play Emil Smith-Rowe at number 10. Go with a front line of Pepe on the right, Aubameyang on the left, Aubameyang central striker, Saka on the left, Emil Smith-Rowe at number 10. Play Ainsley Maitland-Niles alongside, Elneny in midfield. Just do something to try and change things. Don't continuously play the same players in the same position and just hope something's going to change, because it's not going to change. And you're playing against a Southampton team full of confidence as well. We're going to come here absolutely fancying their chances of getting 3 points. And if Arsenal lose on Wednesday night, it'll be the first time they've lost 5 league games at home in a row in the club's entire history. That shows how bad things have got for Arsenal right now under Mikel Arteta. Obviously, the Mesut Ozil situation comes up again. When you're talking about what's next, can Ozil make a difference? Well, obviously he can't at the moment because he's not registered. But whenever your results aren't going your way, Ozil's always going to come up. We've seen lots of people talk about it after last night's game. Mikel Arteta was actually asked about it before last night's game as well, saying, could it change? Could you bring Ozil back to solve this creativity problem? He said he's not in the squad right now. I'm focusing just on the players we have here, but whatever happens in January, we have some time to decide. So he's not closing the door on it there. Ozil coming back. I mean, really, you look at it and think he has to come back. How can you not have him in the team? But I still think it's unlikely, just because it would make Arteta look very, very weak to make that decision, and then basically you go begging back to Mesut Ozil to come and try and save the second half of the season. Footballing wise, it should happen. Arsenal can't create. They've got a very good number 10 there. Surely he should come back and it would help Arsenal. But I just think what it would mean for them, what it would say about Mikel Arteta and his manager, the way he manages things, the way he's handled that situation. It would make him look very, very weak. And I would be surprised if it happens, but I completely understand it. So many of you are sending in questions to me and asking me about it, because football inside of things, there's no doubt that Mesut Ozil improves this Arsenal team. There's no doubt about that. I'm going to finish off what has been a very miserable, I apologise, video this morning with my player ratings. I'll just rattle through them. I'm not going to go too heavily into them because there's no point. The game's done and dusted now. But as I didn't get to do them last night, I'll do them tonight. Bernd Leno didn't really have anything to do last night. He couldn't do anything about the own goal. So I'm going to give Bernd a 6. Hector, I thought he wasn't great. Hector, he got into a couple of decent positions down the right. He didn't make the best of the delivery. He at least tried to make things happen. He showed a little bit of willing, which some of the other players didn't. But I'm going to give Hector a 5. Holding and Gabriel, I'll give a 5. Tierney, I'm going to give a 6. I thought Tierney was okay. Granit Xhaka, I'm going to give a 2. And he's lucky to even get a 2 for what he did there last night. I thought it was poor. El Neni, disappointing as well. Lucky not to get sent off. I'll give El Neni a 4. Saka, I'll give a 5. Lacazette, I got a lot of grief. Lacazette, I thought he should have scored in the first half, but again, I thought at least he showed a little bit more willing, and he was getting in the positions to get on the end of crosses, which other players didn't. So I'm going to give him a 5. I'm going to give Aubameyang a 4. I thought he was really poor. I'm going to give Willian a 4 as well. I thought he was disappointing. So no standouts for me there at all, really. I thought probably Tierney was my man of the match. He at least, again, tried. He set up that chance for Lacazette in the first half. And he's the type of player that you want to build this new look Arsenal team around. You sort of go into the future a couple of years. You look at players like Saka and Tierney and Martinelli and Ainsley Maitland-Niles. People like that. That's who Mikel Arteta really should be looking at building this team around, if Arteta gets enough time to see it through and actually stays in his job, which Arsenal don't want to sack Mikel Arteta. They've put a lot of time into this project. They believe in the project, but ultimately the only way he's going to stay in his job is he somehow manages to halt this slide, because if he doesn't, then results are going to make you lose your job when you're at a club like Arsenal. He's got to find a way of at least stumbling through to next summer when he can make massive changes. He can clear out so much of the deadwood that are in this squad and the players that have underperformed for so many years now, and can start bringing in his own players again. You know, I still think the additions that we've seen recently have been decent. Partey, obviously, really unlucky with the injury. Gabriel's strong. The Saliba situation is a mess fully, and Mikel Arteta has to hold his hands up over that, because I think he hasn't helped that situation. But you've got those players. You bring in a few of the other new ones, then you mix them around with the likes of Saka, Martinelli, Tierney, and you've got a squad that can build there over the next few years. But you've got to find a way of halting this slide, because Mikel Arteta will not be able to get to the summer if he can't find a way to pick up results somehow. And so he's got a massive few weeks coming up, the Arsenal manager. We're speaking to him tomorrow, pre-match press conference, head of Southampton. That press conference is at 9 a.m. tomorrow. We'll pop back on afterwards and do a video after that, talk about what he had to say and look ahead a little bit more to that Southampton game. Apologies for how miserable this video's been, but let's face it, it's a miserable time. I'm miserable. I'm sure you're miserable. Hopefully Arsenal can pull a bit of a surprise on Wednesday night and at least send us towards the Christmas week with a little bit of something to cheer when it comes to football. Until then, everyone, until tomorrow's video, have a good day. Try not to think too much about Arsenal, and I'll speak to you soon.